From the newsrooms of the Black Maroon media, this is the Morning Edition.
I'm Edson.
It's Tuesday, December 3rd. When rebel forces captured Aleppo, the second largest city in Syria, in a surprise offensive, it shocked the Syrian government. And no wonder, for the last 8 years in Syria, a civil war born out of the Arab Spring protests had come to something of a standstill. The front lines were largely frozen, with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad having control of the major cities, while militant groups wrestled for primacy in the regions. That is, until the attack on the weekend from a rebel force with origins in al-Qaeda. So what happens now? The last time Assad had his territory and military rule threatened in such a fulsome way, Russia came to his rescue in a brutal campaign that involved the use of chemical weapons on Syrians. Today, we will dive into the story behind the rebel group that took the city, why they want to topple Assad, and what role his allies might play again. Syria has had an ongoing civil war there for about 13 years. In the past, say, 7 or 8 years, it appears that it's sort of gone into a state of stasis. Over the weekend, or over the past week, we've seen that an insurgent group that's sort of the primary insurgent group, because there have been a number of them, but the primary one is a jihadist group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. They launched a surprise attack on the government forces of Syria. Smoldering buildings in Syria's second-largest city, Aleppo, tells of an unpredictable new chapter, and this has come as a huge shock to people who have been observing the Middle East is the most serious challenge yet to President Bashar al-Assad in years. Insurgent group that's involved in this really surprise attack, that it's the most prominent one in Syria. Who are they and what do they actually want? They're a jihadi group, so they believe in militant political Islam. They want to topple the current government of Syria and replace it with an Islamist government. There have been a number of fighting groups involved in the Syrian civil war. There's been a sort of political evolution as far as the goals of these groups. Earlier on, there were groups that were more associated with al-Qaeda, which, if you remember, that was the group behind the September 11th attacks. Their broad goal was to create a sort of a worldwide caliphate, so sort of a revolutionary goal for the world united by this Islamist division. Islamic State came along in more recent years, around the fighting around Syria and also within Iraq, and they believed in creating an Islamic State, so a state with borders within the Middle East. This current group, HTS, is led by a figure named Abu Muhammad al-Golani, and he is somebody who has been active fighting in Syria for years now, and he's considered actually one of the most effective fighters. And so, let's just pause for a second for maybe we can sort of take a step back and explain to us a bit of the context. So, why has there been so much instability in this country? So Syria, I guess if you went way back, you would say it goes back to the borders that were drawn in the Middle East after the end of World War I by outside colonial powers. But what we've seen in more recent years is there was a movement in Syria for a liberalization that basically brought about this hardline response from the government. Talk about something huge that changed the Arab world. They call it the Arab Spring. In 2011, with the Arab Spring, that rippled across the region and was helped by not just social media, not just demographics. There are a lot of younger people that were seeking change, but also the shared language of Arabic across the region. Mubarak deposed Egypt's 18-day revolution defies all expectations. Libyan revolution of 2011 was about one thing above all else: removing Colonel Gaddafi from power. Today's episode of the Black Maroon Media Morning Edition was produced by Denisha, with technical assistance by Franklin. If you enjoy the show and want more of our journalism, subscribe to our channel today. It's the best way to support what we do. Thanks for listening.